Welcome to the Real Life Buyer podcast. In this podcast, you will hear interviews with business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, authors, and technical specialists in their field. These professionals will hasten your development, accelerate your career, and broaden your business know-how. Now, introducing your host, Dave Barr, interviewing with a purchasing twist.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Life Buyer. Today, I'm talking to a young entrepreneur who has entered the world of corporate event photography and videography. Noah Hutton founded his business in 2022 and has created a rapidly expanding and sought-after service. He's also the host of the Rest of Us podcast, where he talks with other entrepreneurs to learn about their story, struggles, and lessons learned. In this episode, we will be discussing his journey into business, the challenges he has faced and navigated to succeed and grow in the service industry. So without further ado, I welcome Noah onto the podcast. Hi, Noah.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. And it's great talking to you, especially somebody who is so young, particularly when I am so old. But there we go.
You don't look a day over 30.
Yeah, I wish. Never mind. So let's start by you telling us about perhaps the events, maybe the experiences and even debates that resulted in you undertaking, should I say, your chosen business venture.
Yeah, so I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug in college. When COVID hit, I've always wanted to learn. I kind of describe myself as a lifelong learner, and so I wanted to find a way to learn graphic design at the time. So I started a clothing brand that went nowhere, but I love the idea of having my own business, having something that I worked on myself that I was proud of. And so my plan after college was to move out west. I'm in the US, so move out west, out to California or somewhere along the West Coast, get a corporate job in advertising and marketing, and then do my freelance video work, freelance photography on the side until it became a viable business and grow it that way. However, after out of college, I wasn't able to get a job offer. Didn't really have much luck in the job market, searching for jobs. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. But, by July, by August, I was kind of over the whole job application process. It's really just tedious and too much work, in my opinion. So I decided around August to stop applying for jobs and to put all of my time into my business. I still had an internship that I kept after college from the previous summer, and they were going to keep me on as long as it took to get me to a place where I was comfortable in my business, because they were super supportive of that. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of a foothold on just the financial side of it. And that's kind of where I started my business. So I started with real estate photography, actually, and kind of expanded it into events, corporate photography, and just kind of growing it that way and still taking on kind of projects here and there. The irony of that whole situation is yesterday I was actually in Indianapolis doing headshots for the company that I used to intern for. So it's kind of funny how like they are hiring me now in my business to work for them. So yeah, just taking any job I can get, learning, growing my knowledge of production and photography and video, and all of that.
That's great. It's an interesting journey there. And it is great that people that you have perhaps encountered before clearly liked you, like what you did, and have obviously sought your services since. So that's a recommendation in itself.
Yeah.
I assume, though, that all this means that there is a critical aspect to networking for you. You need to build relationships with people and companies. Can you talk about your experience discovering, perhaps engaging with and forming those relationships that has led you to get engagements, particularly from the perspective of obviously a young entrepreneur?
Yeah. So when I started my business, I'm an introvert by nature, so I did not want to do any networking. I don't like going to events. I don't like going to parties and things like that. So when I started my business, all I was doing was cold emails, cold calling, not going into even offices, just all behind my phone, behind my computer. And at the start of 2023, I realized that that's not going to work anymore. I wasn't getting much traction. I had a little bit of traction, but nothing like that could result in business growth. So the first thing that I really did, the big kind of move I went into networking, was joining a networking group here locally. So we basically just refer each other our business. So we have a painter, we have a mortgage officer, we have a realtor, a financial advisor, things like that. We refer each other our business. And that's really when I saw the power of networking kind of really affect my business. I was starting getting leads right away. I was getting leads to new real estate agents that I could work for, leads to other business people that I can meet. Even if it wasn't an actual lead to a done deal, it was a lead to a lunch or a coffee that we could talk and learn more. And after that, I was seeking out as many networking opportunities as I possibly could. So, like I talked about that company that I interned for, I was actually photographing some of their events they had. So their clients would have big like national conventions, national conferences, and a couple of them would hire me to do their photography. And even at those events, I of course asked permission from my client to network, but I was networking with the attendees there. And I've gotten leads, just here and there, meeting people. And a lot of times it's, like, oh, we don't really have the budget for you right now, or we don't really have the money for you right now, or the need for you. But I know somebody that would be really good fit for you. You should talk to them. And that has really kind of just grown my network. And really what I've been working on is just getting my face out there more than just my name or my logo. I want to walk into a room and, recognize people and they're like, oh yeah, I saw your thing on Facebook. I saw that video you posted on LinkedIn or whatever. I really liked that. Like that's really where I've been growing. And it's a lot of that has happened. And then, joining our local chamber of commerce, joining Meeting Professionals International, which is a meeting professionals organization. As an event photographer, I'm a kind of a service provider. I forget what the word they use, but I'm a service provider member. And just joining different organizations, meeting new people. And like I said, like it doesn't always lead to a lead or a contract sign, but it gets your name out there. And, if they have an event coming up or if they have a story they want to tell, or if they know a realtor, like they're going to refer me to them as opposed to just like doing a Google search. Cause they know me, they met me, they trust me. And it's a lot easier to refer me to them if they know me and trust me. And that's the only way to do that is by networking and getting out and meeting them in person.
Right. It's obviously, I guess eventually you were quite intentional on your networking, but I guess networking for networking's sake doesn't always work. It sounds like you've met a particular company, and I'm guessing who they are from the range of services around the room, shall we say. Now, would you say that anybody who's, of your age should be very specifically targeting certain networking companies or set networking groups, or should, any networking type of opportunity suffice?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, from the entity networking side of it, I think that comes from just going to community events in your local area. So like, street festivals and concerts or business events, fundraisers, things like that. Just going to those events, golf outings, things like that. If you're a golfer, those are opportunities for you. Just going to those events, making yourself known, talking to people, and not even pitching your services. That's the biggest mistake I made when I first started networking. Was I was walking up to people, business card in hand, like ready to tell them about what they do, and that's not how you should do it at all, because they don't want that. Like especially if you're in a situation where the whole point is not to be pitched to. Like if you're just out at a festival, like nobody wants to do business out there. Like they just want to enjoy time with their family. And so strike up a conversation with them, talk about, I love this festival, love this, whatever's going on in the community. Oh, that person, I know them too. I've grown up with them. Like just have that conversation and your business will come up eventually. And so that's really where I've learned that. But then on the specific side, yeah, I made really specific moves to be in networking areas. So like I said, the Chamber of Commerce, our Chamber of Commerce just won the top Chamber of Commerce in Indiana. It's one of the best Chamber of Commerce that I've ever heard of, been a part of. And they are super intentional about getting your name out there, marketing you, and getting your name out in the community and the state. And so I made that really intentional decision to join because I knew there's a ton of value there. And I made so many connections already. I walked into their office and they're meeting with another member. And they're like, oh, hey, no, I want you to meet this person. Like every single time I go in that office, every single time. And so that's been a really great move for me. And I was intentional about joining that and also being active in that group. So it's not just joining groups that you think will be good, like joining associations, joining networking groups. It's being active in those groups too. So when I joined the Chamber of Commerce, I didn't just join. I joined, became an ambassador for the chamber, and I'm on the young adult professionals committee. So I'm not only just there at events, I'm on the committee meeting other younger entrepreneurs and younger business professionals like myself. I'm also an ambassador for the chamber. So when new members come on, I'm meeting them as well. And none of this is to try to get leads for my business. Like it's not intentionally like, oh, like I'm going to take them on as an ambassador because I think they would be a good client for me. It's just being active in my community, being known, because I know that if you're patient with that, it'll bloom into a lot of different success for your business. The other thing that I did was joining associations and joining groups that are specific to my niche. So MPI is an example of that. I want to shoot more events. I want to shoot more conferences. I was kind of in the running to shoot Gary Vee's conference this year, which is in Indianapolis. So, and that opportunity, or the potential for that opportunity, only came because I joined MPI and I met somebody in Indianapolis that knew that conference was coming to Indianapolis. And he's like, you should reach out to them. We'll just cold email them, see what you can do. It didn't end up working out, but it was still a great opportunity. And so I was intentional about joining an organization that I knew would lead me to more events in the future potentially. And again, it's not like I'm going to shoot all of their clients' conferences this year. I might shoot one or two. I've already shot a couple for members there, so they already know my work. They love my work, so that, and they can network me with other people in that conference. And then there's that. The other thing I've done is, this kind of came out of my internship. I was editing a podcast for a client there, and after I left, they still loved my work. They wanted me to continue on, and so they offered me a sponsorship opportunity where, in return, I would edit the podcast, and then instead of paying me for my work, they would give me a booth at their convention. And so I'm kind of trading work there to get another networking opportunity to meet a ton of association professionals, association executives specifically, who are the decision makers in their groups and can actually get me into the associations that I want to work with. So all of these really intentional moves that I made are to grow my business and meet the people I want to meet, because I know that they're the decision makers in their organizations, and those are all really intentional moves.
Brilliant. You packed an awful lot into that. That's a kind of masterclass on networking you just described there. You're absolutely right. Certainly as a buying person, everybody wants to come up to me with a business card and pitch their company. So I totally relate to that. Unless I'm going to an event where that is the sole purpose, is to meet people and form business understandings, then no, you don't want to have a business card thrust into your face every minute. What I love about what you've said is the fact that you have integrated yourself, for example, into the Chamber of Commerce. You've not been passive, you've been very active, and you've, as you say, intentionally gone out to do things, to get involved in things, get involved with people. There's some brilliant points you made in there. So I think that's a great section, certainly both young people as well as experienced people. And I can tell you that from my own experience. There's some great things in there that you have shared. So thank you ever so much for doing that. Brilliant work. Now, okay, we've just hopefully established a number of leads. The question is, how do you understand your target market's needs? What are their problems, their expectations, their challenges? Now, how have you gone about seeking this information? How have you gone about processing it when you've got it? And how have you used that to grow your business to appeal to your ideal clients?
Yeah. So in my business, that kind of looking at their needs, looking at what they want, looking at what we're going to create is kind of the pre-production phase, we would say. So, if we're going into a production for a video, we're going to plan out all of the dates we need, all of the locations, all the times. But even before that, we're going to look at what are you actually trying to accomplish with this project, this video? What are the emotions you're trying to evoke? Is it going to be more educational? Is it going to be more emotional, and kind of the feeling of it? What are we trying to do here? And then finding out who is their target. So, if I am working, let's say I'm working with a realtor, I'm not shooting their listings, but I'm doing their marketing videos. They want to do, TikTok style, Instagram reel style videos. I'm going to ask them, are you trying to reach buyers and sellers, or are you trying to reach other agents that you want to join your team? Are you trying to educate other agents, or are you trying to educate the general population on different tips and things that they need to think about when they're buying or selling their home, or leasing their home, or renting their home, things like that? And so I ask all these questions in the beginning because I need to understand that, because that changes the way that I shoot the video. That changes the way that I format the video. If I also ask, where is this video going to live? Is this video going to live on TikTok? Is it going to live on Instagram? Is it going to live on your website? That changes how I'm going to shoot the video. That changes the length of the video. That changes the speed of the video. On TikTok and Instagram, you want fast pace. You want a lot of cuts. You want captions. You want all these things. If you're going to do a brand video on your website, people are already on your website. They're very intentional about seeking out your website, or at least the services you're providing. They might be more willing to sit through a 2 to 3 minute brand video. That'll be slower. That'll be more talking head. That'll be more B-roll with drone and all this kind of stuff that is going to tell your story in a slower pace. So I'm constantly asking all these questions about people once they bring me on board as a partner in their organization. So it's just a lot of questions, but it's also not only asking questions in the meetings with the clients, it's doing your research beforehand. So, I just went into a meeting and I was pitching, it's going to be a longer kind of mini documentary style video that, fingers crossed, we're getting off the ground. I'm like 90% there. And so before that meeting, even, I had reached out to another person in my network that I had interned for in the past. So I interned for him 4 or 5 years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And he's done kind of a lot bigger productions than I have. And so I was like, hey, can I just get 20 minutes of your time? Just talk about what you think about this video. And I pitched him my idea. He loved my idea. And he said, you should watch at least some of Drive to Survive on Netflix, because they have a really good interview setup, because they're going to all these different countries and all these different locations, and they want to get the drivers to sit down for 5 minutes. They have to set up their interview area really fast. So watch that. Look how they lit it. Look how they set up the production there. That's a really good reference for you. And then also, he did a production in our jail system here, county jail system, about chemical addiction recovery. And it's in the same lane of the video that I'm going to be doing. So he said, watch a few episodes of that as well, and just kind of look at the pacing we did, look at how we were telling the story, our interview setup, all these kind of things. So those two things really help me kind of understand what actual production is going to look like on my end. And when I go to clients, I'm not explaining the actual production side of it to them, because they don't really care. They don't care what camera I'm using. They don't care the lens I'm using. They don't care, if I'm using a C stand or a tripod. Like, that's not really their job. But they want to know that I'm legit. And so by having these kind of storyboards and kind of mood boards and things like this, of like things that I've done in the past, I know exactly what production is going to look like. And that helps me understand the scope of the project, what I need from them, what they need from me, things like that. And there's one other thing. I was going to talk about. So I have a ton of friends that are in production as well, and I'm constantly reaching out to them. If I have a new type of client, like headshots I did yesterday, I don't do headshots very often. I'm not a portrait photographer. It's not really something I want to do full time, but I got asked to do them, and I was happy to do them, and I could do them. But I reached out to the photographer that did my headshots, and I was like, hey, can I shadow you? So I shadowed her for a day. And when we were doing the headshots, I was texting her and I was like, I used that trick you did. I used the lighting technique you did. I had this one person with this certain circumstance. I was like telling him to stand this way. I learned so much from her. That helped me make the day of headshots so much easier and quicker, and more comfortable for the people in front of the camera. Same goes for video production. If I am shooting, like when I shot real estate for the first time, I reached out to my friends who had shot real estate before. When I was doing potential golf courses as clients, I was texting friends that are in golf courses. I'm constantly texting my friends that are already in production and maybe have years on me, that understand how to work with clients, what questions to ask, how to deal with clients that aren't the most friendly to work with, understanding all of that. So I'm constantly reaching out to them and asking questions and getting encouragement from them as far as like what I need to be doing in the future and if I'm doing a good job and all these type of things. So I think I said a lot there, but it's all kind of making sure that I'm on top of what I'm doing and making sure the client understands. I understand what the client needs, and the client understands what they need from me and what I need from them, to make sure our production goes as smoothly as possible.
Brilliant. Again, superb answer, my friend there. I love the fact that you're not making assumptions about the client's needs. You said you're asking lots of questions, and they're pointed questions, they're relevant questions. And as you very succinctly put in that place, with the clients don't care about the technical side. They just want to see the result at the end, and that's got to match with what's in their head, perhaps in their culture of their business. they want to reflect who they are, what they do.
Yep.
And so, you've really delved into the depths there to make sure you're completely aligned with your clients. You understand them as well as they understand themselves, perhaps even more so from obviously the photography and videography angles. So it's great for you to explain that, because I think people have got to recognize it's not a case of walking in, clicking a camera or pressing the record button. And that applies to lots of businesses who perhaps make assumptions and just do a job and leave again. You're going way beyond that, and you're delighting your customers. So superb, and hats off to you for that insight, and certainly thank you for sharing as well.
Of course, yeah. And I just want to say, like, not all of this, what I'm talking about, it's not come from just like, I knew that already. It's tons of mistakes that I made. It's learning, like, I should really ask that question for that client. I should have gone into more pre-production time with this client, because, there was a client that I used to work with, and I kind of made the mistake of just walking in and being like, okay, what are we shooting today? It was a retainer client. It was social media. So we were kind of shooting a ton of different stuff for a ton of different reasons. But instead of doing my research and being like, hey, you're growing your team, we should, this other team over in this other city is growing their team as well. They're doing a really good job with video. Let's shoot some stuff like that. I just kind of walked in and kind of let the client take the lead, as opposed to working with them and pitching some ideas and kind of working with them in that way to make sure that they understand, that I'm a part of the organization, and I'm not just somebody that's going to click, push record and do it that way. So it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of, making mistakes and learning along the way, but it has been very fruitful for me, I would say, because even yesterday when I was talking to the people I was taking headshots for, like the questions I was asking for them, like, do you prefer this side or that side? Do you have this like thing that we need to adjust for or whatever, like glasses wise, like changing like how their glasses are positioned, changing like if their head's down or up, pulling their shoulders forward. All these little things that I learned from the person that I was getting my headshots done from, that really helped me. And they actually recognized that. They were like, hey, our last photographer didn't do any of that. She didn't ask us what side we prefer. She didn't ask us to put our shoulders forward. She didn't ask us to see the photos so we could like pick which ones we liked and see if we were happy with it. Like I was specifically trying to do a good job and make the people comfortable, because I know that headshots are super uncomfortable. So just in general, like making sure that I'm on the same page with them and I'm showing that I'm putting in my work has been really fruitful for me, because the clients recognize that when they see that you're actually putting in the work.
Brilliant. No, that is an excellent way of describing walking your customer through a journey. After all, you say you're the expert. You don't have the client telling you what to do in this case, because you know what is the right thing to do. So managing your customer is obviously a clear requirement as well.
Yep.
Now, I'm sure the next thing is going to be contentious, and that's the horrible word of pricing. I guess pricing your services to make sure they appeal to the market, but they remain perhaps sufficiently or perhaps inspirationally profitable for your business, I guess, can be a challenge. So can you walk us through the kind of journey of discovery you've made that's resulted in your pricing process and methodology that, makes sure that you win the jobs for the right reasons?
Yeah, it's been a journey, like you said. Like you don't, especially in a creative industry like photography and video, there is no blueprint for how you should price. When you do manufacturing or when you do these certain things or retail, there's an idea of cost of goods sold, and what is the cost landed of this item if you're shipping overseas, that I can, and then I want to put a 30% margin on that or whatever. Like that is kind of how you can price those items. And there's other things too, but that's generally what you're doing. In photography and video, my time is what you're paying for, and my gear. So like, you can't see it behind me and in front of me, but I have probably $10,000 worth of gear around me, just that I've accumulated over the years. And like yesterday, I brought all of it to my production. I brought all of it to shooting a couple different things. So you're paying for, and you're not going to pay $10,000 for that, but you're going to pay for my time, and you're kind of renting the gear in a way. So that is something that I didn't really understand when I started my methodology when I was going into it. I started with real estate as my first kind of work in my business. Was I'm going to undercut everybody in my industry because I'm new and I need to get clients. And what I realized was, when realtors they want the cheapest price. Realtors, they want the cheapest thing, but there's an idea of too cheap. If they see, me doing it for $75, $100, they're going to, even if my work is good and my work is okay, they're going to see I'm a cheap photographer. My work is cheap. It's not going to be good quality. So there is a way of pricing yourself too low. And I had to recognize that. And so after the first few months, I, raised my price a little bit, and that allowed me to bring in more customers. And I didn't raise my price crazy. I raised my price from 100 to 150, or from 150 to 175, or whatever it was. And that kind of put me in a more comfortable place for what I was delivering. And also it allowed realtors to understand that my work was valuable. And so that helped a lot. And then on the other side of kind of my business with events and corporate photography and corporate video, that's a whole nother beast, because you're thinking about day rates, you're thinking about half day rates, you're thinking about gear, travel, food, per diem, things like that. And so that was something I did not understand at all. When I first had my first event client, I kind of let them dictate the price, and I was still a good price. Like they didn't undercut me by any means, but I let them kind of lead that pricing process, because I wanted to see what they were thinking about. And I don't recommend this for anybody. If you have a solid price, like, stick with your price. But I was able to learn that not only they're going to pay me this rate, but they're also thinking about per diem for me, because they have per diem for their own staff as well. And they're also thinking about travel, so hotel and airfare as well. So I was able to learn that, okay, like, when I price myself and when I pitch myself to other clients, I need to price myself as the rate plus per diem plus travel. And so that allowed me to then look at my own rate and figure out what I was comfortable with and what wasn't too crazy for clients to understand. Like, there's a level of price where clients will just run. And even if you find the right clients, like, it's still a little bit too high. So you need to kind of price yourself what you're valued, but also, like, in a way that is attractive to clients. And so that I was able to learn that. And so, I found a rate that I would pitch to clients, and sometimes it stuck, and I was like, okay, that's a good rate. And so now I kind of have a set rate that I work with. And the other thing with that is, like, I got to a point where I was confident enough in my work and my pricing, and I got enough feedback from the good work I was doing to where I was confident with the price. And so I had a couple of clients that would be like, hey, what are your rates for this event? It's a 3-day conference, whatever. And I'd be like, I would charge $3,200, or I would charge $2,700, and plus airfare and travel or whatever. And they would be like, oh, we were budgeting $750. And I'm like, well, then I can't even, like, work with you on that. Like, there's just no rate. So, but if they were at like 2,200, or if they were at, 2,000, we could figure out something that works. So I'm confident in my rate that I'm not just going to drop my price for anybody, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that I can work with people and kind of figure out a pricing that works for them. And so it's a really complicated process. It takes a lot of learning. And again, I go back to, I was asking my friends all the time, what are you thinking about? Like, I'm doing this type of production. What are you thinking about? What am I missing? For this bigger mini doc, that's a lot of extra work. That's a ton of travel. That's a big, like, sets and feeding people and location rental and things like that. That's stuff that I haven't even thought about in the past. Now I have to think about with that. So it's partially just being confident in your rates, but also recognizing and talking to people that, like, what does this look right as pricing? Like, was I too aggressive in saying $1,500 for this? And they might say, like, yeah, that's a little bit high for what you were charging, or no, they were just being cheap. Like, that's the correct pricing. So it's a lot of learning and a lot of just kind of throwing out prices and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. But that's kind of how I've learned how to price myself. And now, because I've gone through all of that, I kind of know my numbers now of, like, hey, we want you out for this conference. It's an 8-hour day. What's the rate? And I can almost immediately send them an email back. Like, I'll do a couple, like, calculations of, like, travel and this and that, but, like, I can send them an email back right away. Like, that'll be $850, or that'll be $900, or whatever. Like, I can easily do that. But it took a long time of learning, what I should charge, how I should charge, what works, what doesn't, and how to communicate the prices to the client as well. They don't necessarily need to see what all goes into my travel rate, or they don't need to see what goes into my per diem or whatever. Like, if I say a $75 per diem max, that they might see that as a lot, but that's including, food, that's including parking, that's including Ubers and taxis. They don't necessarily need to see that. They just need to know that I need $75 a day to get around and feed myself. And so it's just a lot of learning of how to communicate that to the client and also how to be confident in my pricing, because that's the only way I'm going to grow my business and kind of educate people of my worth.
Yeah, that's some brilliant points you've drawn out there. You quite rightly say that you could have two photographers using the same equipment on the same day and have completely different results. Now, in your case, you're saying, look, here's my expertise, here's my experience, here's my knowledge. If I do it, you've got some quality assurance here because I've done this before and I know what I'm doing. I'm organizing things that are done efficiently and effectively. I'm going to align with what you need rather than what somebody gives you. So a lot of people would undervalue those kind of things because they're kind of not tangible in some respects. And as you rightly say, there's self-worth there. Your belief in yourself is coming through really strongly here.
Well, and not only that, but if you look at, let's use a restaurant as an example. When you look at the prices on the restaurant, like, yeah, you could go buy a little bit of some beef and make a burger for a couple dollars at home. But what you're actually paying for in a restaurant is the employees, pay. You're paying for the utilities. You're paying for the food, the cost of food, the rental of the place, potentially, all the overhead that they have. And same thing goes for me. So you're not just paying for me and my gear. You're paying for my insurance because I'm fully insured in all my productions. You're paying for my license to fly my drone because I'm licensed to fly my drone, and you have to be in the United States to do that. You're paying for, all these different things, all these overhead pieces that are beneficial to you because, let's say, God forbid, something happens on set that like my C-stand falls over or my drone, lands somewhere it shouldn't. I'm okay with that. Like I'm not okay with that, but I'm covered for that. And so, if you find the high school student that's charging $50 for a video or whatever, I love that they're doing that. Like I love that they're getting that experience, but they might not have that experience of, what all to think about on set and things like that. And so if something happens with them, I guarantee they're not fully insured. I guarantee they're probably not licensed to fly a drone. I hope they are, but they probably aren't. And so all these different things, like there's so much overhead that people don't really understand that kind of goes into the pricing. And so it's not just my time and my gear that's very valuable, but it's also just everything else that it just takes to run a normal business. Like it's the same for every business, especially if you have a office location. Like you understand, if you being the client would understand, like you guys have overhead too. You're charging your prices a certain way because you have to cover your business costs. I also have to cover my business costs. I'm a business. Like just because I'm a solo entrepreneur doesn't mean I'm not a business. And so I have, accounting fees and legal fees and insurance and all that kind of stuff. So it's almost in a way educating your client on kind of why you're valuable. It's not just your time and expertise, but it's the overhead of the business and just cost of doing business.
Yeah, brilliant breakdown of the costs that are going into there. And it's a great education you're giving other young entrepreneurs listening to this. It's fantastic to hear it. Now, another difficult word is contracts. And having a contract, it sounds scary, it sounds legal, it sounds impersonal and trusting, all those horrible things. But you've probably been through some experiences here of maybe not having contracts and then having contracts. What's your opinion of contracts and how important are they to you and your business?
Contracts are crucial. Like you said, I've been in situations that one of the first bigger gigs I got, I worked with a realtor twice on two different properties. Neither time I had a contract, and it took me a month each time to get paid. And it wasn't just like, oh, like we only pay monthly, so we're gonna, or quarterly, whatever. It wasn't anything like that. It was just like they were dodging my calls. Like they just were not paying me. And so if I had a contract that stated like now in my contract for real estate, they pay on delivery. Like they literally cannot download the photography until they pay. And so I made that change, and I have a contract that states that because I'm going to be protected 100%. And it's not like a money reason. Like I'm not like desperate for $150, but I need to get paid for my work. And I don't want to be chasing you and calling on the phone. And I ended up calling her son to get her to pay, like, because he was a realtor in her brokerage or whatever. And like, it was just insane. So now I have contracts. And one thing that I did when I started to get a full like terms of service written for my real estate business, and that kind of translates into my other business as well, is I took my terms of service that I kind of had compiled from reading other people's contracts and looking for free templates online and this and that. And I took it to a lawyer and I paid the lawyer fee, which is quite expensive. But I paid them to read it over. And I think I paid like $150 for him to say, like, change 2 words and you're good. But like, I'm glad I did that because it gave me that confidence of saying, like, yep, I'm legal in the state of Indiana to have all these things in my contract to make sure I'm getting paid, to make sure I'm not liable for certain things, to make sure that they understand the copyrights of my work. That's another big thing is copyrights. Most people don't understand what copyrights look like. And then not only that, but now I have a contract that I know is right and it works and is legal. And then when I go to clients that are maybe upset about certain things, I don't want to use it, but I have to like say like, hey, you signed a contract that said I own the copyrights to my photos still. You can't use them in this way. And I've had to do that in the past, unfortunately. Like, I don't like doing that. It's the most uncomfortable conversations, but it just protects me. It makes sure that people understand and, they sign the contract every time they work with me that I own the photography and they're paying on delivery and this and that. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of protection that I didn't have in the beginning, and now that I have now. And for other works, like I will most often not do the work until I have a contract. I did a shoot yesterday that I didn't have a contract signed, but then I just got the contract signed this morning. So it worked out in the end, but it's not like the way I want to do it. So like generally I send the invoice, I send the contract, and once that contract is signed, we're good to go. But if I don't have the contract, I don't have any guarantee from them that they're going to abide by the agreement. And so if you're a younger entrepreneur, if you're newer to business, whatever your business is, get some sort of a contract together, even if it's just a 1-page document that says, like, here are the deliverables, here's what I'm going to deliver to you, whether it's 5,000 items or, a video or whatever it is. And then here's the terms of the payment. Here's any copyright info. Here's how we get out of the contract if we need to. All of that, just have a document and sign it, and also take it to a lawyer and have them read over it because that will just give you some peace of mind. Pay the $400 an hour or whatever they're going to charge. Like, it's going to be worth it. You don't have to have them on retainer, but just get them to read it. So I think contracts have been something I didn't think about in the beginning. And I was like, oh yeah, I need a contract. I'll get one eventually. But now I'm like, and I also write my own contracts now. That's another thing that it's helped me in this situation, is by going to that lawyer and having him read over the contract that I wrote when he told me it was fine. Now I have a template of wording and things like that I can bring into other contracts. And now I just write all my own contracts and have kind of base level boilerplate stuff to send over. And that saves me a lot of money too. So with contracts, I think it's always worth it to spend the money. Accounting and contracts are the two things that I always think are worth spending the money. And so that's what I would say about contracts.
Brilliant. Some great information there as well, Noah. So before I ask my last question, keeping it on the time, people are probably intrigued about you, your services, what you could do for them. So can you share, where do people go to find out about you? Where are your social media links?
Yeah. So my business, I don't know if I ever said this in the podcast or if you did, but my business is NTH Productions. My website is nthproductions.co. And my social media, if you just search NTH Productions or under NTH_Productions, you'll find it. It's a black box with a gold logo. So you'll find it. My services I offer, so real estate photography, that includes architecture and commercial properties as well. And then I do events, so corporate events, fundraisers, golf outings, leadership conferences, leadership, panels, things like that, photography and videography on that side. And then I have a kind of catch-all category called commercial media. So that's everything else. That's, aerial photography, aerial video. I'm working with golf courses, so that kind of includes it into there. So just video and photography for businesses. But yeah, go to nthproductions.co and you can reach out to me. I love to chat with people, even if they're not, a paying client. I still love to learn about business and learn about other people's business. And if you're a younger entrepreneur that just wants to reach out and talk, I'm happy to do that. So yeah, nthproductions.co is where you find me.
Brilliant. I'll make sure all that's in the show notes. Thanks
Perfect.
for sharing that. So he does touch on other budding entrepreneurs. Now, I'm sure there's lots of things you've learned. You've shared a vast amount today. What would you say, if you can summarize, let's say, the top tips for somebody who's, just emerging into the thoughts of setting up their own business? What would you say to them about what they should do, what were the key difficulties that you've experienced that you could have avoided giving a little bit more thought and effort. You've touched on contracts. What other things could there be?
Yeah, so I think we already kind of touched on the biggest one, which is networking. That has changed my business dramatically, just meeting people and all of that. So networking is the biggest thing. The other two things that I would say are confidence and patience. So you have to be confident in your business, especially in a creative industry. You cannot walk into a business and say like, hey, I'm just starting out, would love to work with you. You got to say like, hey, I'm a videographer. I charge $350 an hour and this is what I can deliver you, and have the work to back it up. Like you cannot talk about being a first time anything. Like, oh, it's my first time doing headshots, my first time flying my drone or whatever. Like if it's a friend, maybe, but if it's a client, like you have to just be confident in your business and what you're offering. And if the client doesn't seem to work out, if you see any red flags, like be okay to walk away from that client. I have had situations where like I'm reading the email and I'm like seeing red flags, just like how they're talking and things like that. And I'm like, this probably isn't going to go anywhere. I'll kind of let them, I'll see what they're doing. But I'm probably not going to work with them. Or if they can't afford me, like they just can't afford me, and I'm okay to walk away from that in the future. And you have to have the confidence to do that. You know, you'll find the right clients will come if you price yourself right, if you communicate your offerings right, and if you have the work to back it up. The right clients will come around, and those are the clients you want to work with. Because if you're seeking out bad clients, it's just going to be a headache for you, and you don't want to work with them. I cannot talk today. I just talked a lot. I can't talk. You don't want to work with them at all if they're going to be that way. The other thing is patience. I always say that I thought I would be, where I was a few months ago, back in October of last year. It was kind of a rude awakening come December when I was not in that place, but it was because I wasn't being patient. I wasn't networking. I wasn't putting in the work to find the right clients and putting the work to have the service offerings to show other clients. So be patient. The work will come. Like I was saying before this, I had 2 weeks of a lot of nothing where I was just pitching different clients and reaching out to people and continuing to network. But then this week and next week are just a lot of production and a lot of work and meetings and meeting people and things like that. So being patient and understanding that the work will come if you put in the work. And then when you have those off days, when you have those off weeks, use that time to work on your skills. Use that time to, you got a new light, rent a light or rent a lens or rent this or do that and work on your skill. Practice, if you're a graphic designer, do some passion projects, do some spec work, shoot a commercial in the style of Wes Anderson's, design a graphic in the style of Coke and the Coca-Cola logo, like do all these different things. North Face, if that's a brand you want to work with, shoot a commercial for North Face, or, shoot a commercial for Banana Republic, things like that. When you have that slow time, that's the time to work on yourself and work on your business. And then when you have the really busy weeks, that's great because you're getting paid. So, and then those off weeks will get you paid in the future because, like, let's say you shoot a spec commercial for North Face, you send it out to them and they like it. They're going to they might put it on their social media, or they might like ask you to come out to one of their shoots, even if it's just as a PA or, just to watch. Like that's better than nothing. So I think, being patient is so key because the work will come if you put in the work.
Right. Some fantastic advice you've given to everybody today. Now, I really do appreciate that. And I think clearly you're going to be a very successful guy. So absolutely best of luck for everything you do in the future. And please stay in touch.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me on. This is a great conversation.
Cheers now. Bye.
Thank you.
So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and it's given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. If you are a purchasing or a supply chain professional, business owner or director, come and join my Facebook group, the Purchasing and Supply Chain Community Hub, a safe place to engage with like-minded, friendly people. See you soon. Bye.